Hey friends, so honored to be with Silvia Vasquez-Lavado today. We're talking all about climbing the mountain of life. I mean, she climbed a lot of peaks and a lot of mountains in reality, but also her life's mountains, from alcoholism to sexual abuse surviving and all kinds of things. Silvia is an inspiration and she made me cry today, so I'm still tearing.
Well, for all the Heal Squad listeners, come and join us on this beautiful episode as we're going to go through this roller coaster of a ride, how to go from rock bottom to the rock top of your own lives. Thank you.
It's very powerful. And like I said, I had to use my tissues. So don't forget to hit subscribe and you will get to enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Better Together. When you know better, you get better. That's what we try to do here every single day. Our quote for today comes from our guest. Some people are drawn up the mountain for glory. Others are pushed up by pain. That's from Silvia Vasquez-Lavado. I feel like I'm being pushed up a mountain with pain right now. Anyway, Heal Squad, what's up? Here on the East Coast in Connecticut, Queens are in the West Coast studio. I'll be joining them very soon. Today we're going to be chatting with the very inspiring Silvia Vasquez-Lavado about pulling yourself up from rock bottom. We're going to be talking about courage, how she rose from her darkest moments to become an inspiration and an advocate for others, how she didn't allow the trauma of her childhood to destroy her life, but instead she took back her life one brave step at a time. Her book is amazing. I forgot to bring it in here with me. But it's pretty incredible. It's called In the Shadow of the Mountain, a memoir of courage. It is out and available right now. Queen, did you get a chance to take a look at it?
Oh yeah. Her story, I mean, it was kind of funny reading it because I was like, oh my gosh, is she going to have to learn how to pivot again? But I felt like there was so much takeaway and so much like that I could relate with or relate to and that everyone could. You know, for me, it was really, she'll get into it, but she talks about like, if you continue to run from your trauma, that it's just going to keep, showing up in different ways. And for me, that really hit. I was like, oh yeah. So I can't wait to talk to her. She's amazing. Her story is amazing. And I know you two are going to have just such a good convo too.
It's so funny because I was just talking to someone today about how if you don't deal with your grieving, there'll be new things for you to grieve.
Yes.
So, we talk about how cycles just keep coming around and around and around. They're patterns because you have to fix something. Grieving is the same way.
Right.
So it's interesting.
It is, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. Well, I say we get right to it. Silvia Vasquez-Lavado is a Peruvian American explorer, mountaineer, social entrepreneur, activist, speaker. In June 2018, she completed the 7 summits and has been the first openly gay woman to do so. Her new and first book, The Shadow of the Mountain, is a remarkable story of heroism and community, one in which awakens in all of us a lust for adventure, gratitude for the strong women in our lives, and a faith in our own resilience. I am so excited to chat with you today, Silvia. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Maria. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I have been looking so forward to this conversation. I'm just thrilled. It's such an honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, man, I went to I have a little pond here on the property, and I went out there to read your book, and what a story you have. And it's amazing that you're sharing it with all of us, because I think, like Kelsey said, it doesn't matter what age you are or what you've gone through. There's so much to take from it. If you, I guess, probably have to start from kind of the beginning and kind of educate our audience a little bit about your story. And I know with the book, you're starting with, climbing the 7 summits, and I'm reading it and I'm in it. Like, I'm there with you. I'm seeing just the whiteout of the sky. I'm horrified. I'm sweating. I'm like, why did I do this? Oh shit, it's not me, it's her. I was so deep. It's like, when you're watching a show or a movie and you feel like you're in it, or I watch basketball games and I feel like I'm playing them. I felt like that reading your book, and it was so intense. And then even your childhood stories were so intense. And so I feel like, share with everybody a little bit about what brought you to those 7 summits, and then we can go into kind of all the other stuff from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much. And I am so grateful to actually to connect to your beautiful, Heal Squad. Your followers are just so amazing. But really, I come from Peru, and even though I grew up in a beautiful country that is full of mountains, they never really appealed to me. The stories of people climbing mountains when I was growing up, it was always about, bravado and ego and conquering. And I never felt I had any of that. And especially because, unfortunately, like many women, I was a survivor of sexual abuse. And I had to endure that as a little girl. From ages, like, even though, for me, it's clear when I was around 6, this stuff was happening. The grooming started around even earlier. It was somebody who used to work in my house. And literally lasted until I was around 10. And so my childhood, was truly, unfortunately paused, and my innocence was taken. And as I found out that what had happened to me was not right, I was struggling with my own sense. I felt, as unfortunately many victims, that this was my fault. And I internalized the shame, I internalized the guilt. And it made me somebody who was incredibly fearful of everything. And I ultimately told my mother when I was around 14, 15 what had happened. And she's like, we got to get you out of this country. And that's what ultimately led me here. I came on a scholarship to start college. And still, I was running away from my problems. And after school, I was studying in Pennsylvania. I moved to San Francisco, and I became an alcoholic. And it wasn't also something that, I just picked up on drinking. I started working for an alcohol company. And because I kept thinking like, well, you know what, I'm a survivor. I have overcome this, and nobody could ever do this damage. When trauma is in your body, when those emotions of shame can stay within you, they will make a comeback. And if they go unresolved, they manifest in other ways. And so for me, drinking became a way of coping with it, of trying to erase who I was. And as I was driving my life to tatters, I had gotten a DUI, I had been in jail. Literally everything was collapsing. I had an episode in which I hit a point of enough is enough, and I reached out for help. And I asked my mother in Peru, I needed help, and she had me come down to Peru and do a powerful session of ayahuasca, which is an Amazon healing plant. And on this session, I came across a vision of me as a little girl, the little girl that had gone through this horrible experience, the little girl that I was trying to destroy as an adult. I wanted to erase the memories. And I saw her, and then I saw myself as an adult reconnecting to this little girl. And as we came back almost whole again, I remember hearing these rumblings and mountains form. And my little girl is the one who pulled me to walking into mountains. And that is literally what started this vision for me of like, like I need to walk to a mountain, and completely unexpected. But there was something that was so powerful. There was the sacredness, that part that we all have within ourselves, that innocence that still is in us, that literally became my salvation, and which led me into this incredible journey. So it was something totally, totally random.
Wow. So it was in an ayahuasca journey that you saw this vision. I'm sure you doubted it, like you said, for a bit. At what point did you decide, well, let's give this a shot? And what was kind of that journey like?
It's very funny. I'm a Virgo, so I can be, a little bit creative, but I can get very literal. And I could have taken that and been like, let me walk this path of life up and down on the valleys of,
Yeah.
I'm bringing my little girl. But then I went like, no, 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 no. Let's get a little bit more into action. And the irony, even though I come from a country of mountains, I had never been a big trekker. I had never gone on big hikes. If anything, I was the type of person that I would go camping with friends, and I literally would drive to the campsite, set up things, sleep, drink everything, and then leave. So it wasn't something that, I was driven to nature. Never. It's something that really didn't appeal to me. But there was something about that connection to me. I mean, especially seeing that younger version of me, I think that rattled my life, because many of us who maybe had, and we don't even have to had, something as traumatic as what I went through, but at times a difficult childhood, something that created some uneasiness. It becomes sometimes this impetus for us to try to overcome something in life. And one thing that really stuck with me is just to feel that emotion when I connected to her. This was somebody that I was trying to destroy, who had absolutely no fault. This was a part of me that I needed to really reconnect with. And so that had marked me so much. It was so unexpected, so out of left field, that's when I decided, like, okay, well, I mean, and this is the one thing, whenever I don't have children of my own, but when I see little kids, their innocence, I mean, it's just so pure. They're true little angels. That there was something that I just felt like my little girl inside of me is the one who pulled me to walk into a mountain. So maybe let me turn this literal. And of course, the Virgo side of me is like, well, okay, let's analyze a couple of things. We have to bring the biggest pain in your life. Well, let's walk to the biggest mountain, or let's walk to the tallest mountain in the world. And that's when I took myself, that was in 2005, that I took myself to the base of Mount Everest, which is the tallest mountain in the world. And I had no idea what to expect. It was, I mean, for me, that emotion was so powerful that it felt, this had been a period that had been robbed from me as a little girl, that it just felt, well, let's take this leap of faith, and I have nothing to lose. And if anything, the jaded part of me is like, all right, you know what, for once and for all, let's prove that whatever came inside of me is wrong. So let's just even do it instead of living life with like, I should have done it. It's like, I'm likely going to fail. I'm likely not going to find anything. Like, what's the joy in walking about what's the joy in walking among a bunch of rocks? Like, I was so jaded, so, not your poster child on this. And that's what completely changed for me. I went with zero expectation, not having any faith whatsoever in me. And I just decided to just follow this vision. And oh boy, I was so wrong about how it all started.
I mean, for someone who's never, I go on hikes and stuff. I would think, if I'm going to go climb Mount Everest, I got to do all this physical training. And I know that you have to go through training to learn how to do the ropes and the buckles and all of that. But, what was that preparation like?
For me, the preparation, and that's one of possibly what was beautiful about the journey, is that I didn't know what to expect. And I was so pleasantly surprised. The very first time I walked to the base of Everest, on my second day, I came across the Himalayas, and that changed my life. Instead of seeing, these rocks unmovable, it was the sight of something that was so bigger than me, that was more almighty than me, that just made me feel so minuscule. And instead of feeling scared, I felt a sense of welcoming and protection. And it was possibly one of the most magical experiences to date right now, is the sense that, you are truly being accepted for who you are. The mountain didn't care. The surrounding valleys just were this massive inspiration. And it is said that when you are in, especially when you're surrounded in beautiful sights in nature, and it doesn't have to be really tall, but within 3 days, your brain starts rewiring. it's this neuroplasticity that starts happening. And so for me, the experience was one of coming together with the environment. And so by the time that I got to the base of Everest, that very first time, I felt so much love and gratitude because inside of me, I could feel a surge of courage. And so because it started from such an unexpected place, by the time I got to the base of Everest and I made a promise to one day return and attempt to climb, that is when I felt, okay, well, I'm going to start learning. I want to become a beginner all over again. And I wasn't in my 20s. I was already in my 30s when I started doing it. So it wasn't so much that, I got all this energy. And that's the one aspect that I have learned. I mean, I have endurance. I don't have speed. And that's something that a lot of us women have compared to guys. And so if we are able to trust to that, I mean, it was just this beautiful process of learning. And of course, I think for me, I was able to look at it. And that's when I decided to attend the 7 summits. I figured, well, if I want to do the tallest mountain in the world, I should learn. I'm also not going to, there wasn't no ego. There wasn't a way of like, I need to climb this, I need to conquer it. No, I just felt like I wanted to climb Everest because of gratitude. The mountain had given me my life back. It had given me my sense of belonging in this world. It had given me my whole acceptance, which I had been struggling
just from visiting it that day.
That's from visiting that. It took us about 4 days. Maria, this journey is so powerful. And it's not about climbing it, even just walking to it. The changes that it will do, it's unreal.
Wow. I can't believe just visiting it is that profound. I mean, obviously you hear the experience and you're reading. What I see is, especially for women, we're so anticipators. We're always thinking in the future, what do we have to do next? Our to-do lists and our responsibilities. And when you're climbing the mountain, as I was climbing it through you, it's like, you can only think about that one step.
Yes.
That's it. You can't think any further. You can't also think of anything, period. You have to just stay in that meditative kind of space, it feels like, which is probably why it's so transformative.
Yes, absolutely. I think what it brings you is for you to feel. Even that very first time when I was trekking to the base, I wasn't drinking and I was scared of altitude. I mean, the last thing I remember, I was afraid, like, oh my, and you hear about altitude hitting you and multiple unexpected things that can happen. And so there was a part of me that also was cautious. I mean, and I wasn't going with a death wish. I was just going like, okay, I was waiting until my headache was going to hit in, until I was going to feel really sick to turn around. I didn't think that very first time I was going to make it all the way to the end. But what it does, and it was one of the very few times that I was starting to embrace sobriety, it allowed me to really feel yourself. And I think, as you said, for many of us, there's so much anticipation because our brains are constantly running. And sometimes we neglect what is the beauty of staying present? What is the beauty of feeling just every single movement? And that groundness brings a whole reconnection to you. I mean, being able to pay attention to all your different senses. It is powerful. I mean, that is when, and I think, and especially as I've guided many, many people, I feel when you have that opportunity, it allows you to also, besides reconnecting to yourself, reattuning so many things. I mean, to me, my kind of just not just your awareness, but your instincts, your sense of, you're able to really embrace so much about, your own life and your own decisions. I mean, it is
trusting yourself.
You completely have to trust in yourself. And that's one of the things that it is so transformative. And I'm loving that you're mentioning, I mean, just imagining, well, let's take it as an immersive experience. Let's organize a big trekking trip. Let's bring, members of your Heal Squad. And it will be for me, putting the invitation out there for you to experience it because it's something really, really powerful.
Oh my goodness. That would be powerful. Yeah. I think it's like, we're also used to like asking everyone what we should do and not trusting our inner guidance and our own kind of wise souls that, you have to trust yourself in those moments. That's what I was getting from the journey. You talk about when you run away from your problems, they chase you. Will you share a little bit about that? Because I just thought that was so powerful.
It is what they do. I think that, and now I've been 4 years sober, and I've been doing a lot of heavy work for myself. I think I made a compromise that before writing the book, I, needed to, for once and for all, walk a path that will keep me in a lot of integrity. And luckily, I started doing a lot of self-work, and that allowed me to really get into the origins of just, what are the resources that we have to really strengthen ourselves. And I feel that for all of us, I think that the process of retrusting us, it's, fear is a constant. Fear is always going to be coming in. I think fear, if we look at it, that's something that we can change. But we need to look at fear as these passing clouds. We just need to trust, and that, especially for me, that's what I have loved, especially when I have been on really extreme situations, climbing some of these mountains. It's just, fear is going to be your constant. You're going to have a misstep. You're going to have a little error. But if you're present, if you're able to be just in that time, you're going to be able to also overcome to that misstep. And I think if you let ego on the side, and that's actually also what represents, it's more of a personal way of kind of dealing with this whole journey. What is it that is driving you? If it's the ego side, if it's the way of trying to prove something to someone, if it's something of conquering, if we come with that mentality, that brings an edge out, but the burnout is also can happen really quickly. As opposed to, in my own way, I wasn't doing to particularly break any records. I was just doing for a personal healing journey. And so it becomes this whole embracing and growth with yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like the reconnection and just a regrounding of yourself and the reappreciation of what you have. And that's something that has been really, really powerful for me.
So would you say that climbing Mount Everest was kind of that transformative moment that led you to do all the internal work and heal all the wounds?
Climbing Mount Everest was, by the time that when I got to the summit of the mountain, I remember feeling almost like, wow, this impossible dream came true. We all have dreams, we all have goals. And because sometimes many of us have so many multiple things that we take for granted, we're like, this is what my dream is, to eventually go to this trip. Or like, I would love to visit this place. And then once we get there, we totally forget how hard we work to get there. Mm-hmm. And I think that, and, especially when, for many goal-oriented of us, it's like, we just keep, it's almost, you get there, you're like, okay, what's next? What's the bigger? It always opens up. Mm-hmm. I felt, and before I got to the summit of Everest, there was this point, we were climbing through the night, and most of the summits usually just start in the middle of the night, because that's actually when the temperature, it gets colder, but it is at its calmest. And at that high elevation, wind becomes your worst enemy. Imagine when you are flying on a plane and you see turbulences. Those are the turbulences that we feel at high altitude. So you have to make sure that you're it's this horrible slap. And so I remember we were climbing through the night. It was incredibly cold. And then as we started seeing the dawn of day, I got at this point, and I was so high up. And I remember looking to my left and just seeing how far I had climbed on my own two legs. And it was maybe one of the very few times that I was able to have the perspective of like, oh, God, I got this far. and nobody brought me here. It was just me. And there was this appreciation. And I have little skinny legs. I call them chicken legs. So I was just looking at my chicken legs and just simply going like, you go, girls. There was this sense of like, wow, I literally did it on my own. And so by the time I got to the summit, that's something that was so beautiful to just really, really connect to that appreciation of like, wow, I did this dream. So achieving the dream for me was this unreal part. But at that point, I was still drinking. While being on mountains, I wouldn't drink. And while being on expedition, while being on mountains, I wouldn't drink, but I'll come down and I'll party my ass off because I'll be like, woo, I did something incredible. And I felt that, because of even the reasons I got into climbing, I feel the mountain was like, you know what, that's not planned for you. And so I came back. I started getting a lot of exposure, especially in my country. While I was climbing, nobody in Peru really didn't care. All of a sudden, I become the first Peruvian woman to summit at Everest. I become this symbol of women empowerment, and especially because of my story, I was leading, I led a 1 million women march with some other survivors. I was going through this, massive exposure, yet I wasn't ready. Internally, I was having a little bit of this imposter syndrome and going like, oh my God, this is too much. And I started drinking heavily again. And so on my anniversary of Everest, I was cycling to my work and I got into this horrible bike accident. I didn't have a helmet and I hit my head so hard on the pavement. My brain shook. I passed out. I got picked up by an ambulance. I was taken to trauma. And while I was there, they found a small brain tumor at the base of my brainstem. And that rattled me. I was about 10 days shy of trying to go and climb Denali, my last mountain in Alaska, to complete the 7 summits. And I remember like being impatient, having a little bit like my head is bleeding. And I was like, I gotta get out. I got something to climb. And the doctors were like, no, you're not going to go anywhere. And I'm like, no, I got to get out. And they were like, nope, listen, we find a brain tumor. You're not going anywhere. And I just went like, okay. And that evening, one of the doctors came and said, we can't determine if your tumor is cancerous or benign. So you're going to have to wait a couple of days because of the trauma that you've received. And I had friends that were visiting. I kicked everybody out. And as I was on my own, I told myself, all right, you know what? I will never forget the emotion of gratitude because I felt, well, my mom had died of cancer. And I told myself, listen, if it's cancerous, it's in the family. I've had other relatives who have gone through it. And I just felt, it could be in my path. And I had a sense of gratitude. I felt this in life. You have given me so many amazing gifts. There's been a lot of loss. There's been a lot of grief, but also I have experienced some of the most amazing sunsets, sunrises. I've been able to just have such an amazing life that if it's my time to go, I will go out on a bang. I will quit my job tomorrow if it's cancerous. I'm going to try to keep working with young women, try to climb as much as I can, and try to find a way of sharing the story. And if it's benign, we'll see. And that was the beginning of my path. That was literally the impetus of what has brought me here to share the story. Luckily, my tumor has been benign. Unfortunately, it's at the base of my brainstem. It's a glioma that it's just like holding there and it's inoperable. But it's been. It's really funny. It looks like a little olive with a little French beret. So I call it little, I was like, it feels like it's like this little French tumor going like you're smoking a little cigarette. But I think that was possibly the beginning of me really reevaluating my life. I think that is what pushed me to feel, that my mortality was very palpable. And I think it really put me into this purpose of really reanalyzing my life and trying to be where I am right now.
So I feel like we talked about kind of the early childhood stuff. We talked about Everest, which we haven't finished yet, but there's that middle part of achieving. I feel like a lot of times we go through trauma and And it'll push a lot of us into high achieving. I'd love to hear a little bit about your story there.
Mm-hmm. For high achieving, I would say, and that's a great question. I mean, I personally, and I have a hard time at times, dissecting it, because I feel we all have it in us to do it. I mean, there's no difference between you and me. Well, there's massive differences, but in terms of, as we were born and what we create, I think for me as a survivor, having had that shame of my childhood kept pushing me to potentially, feel that if I keep overcoming more things, that possibly could rechange the past and that could re-alter things. I am very grateful that, through even climbing and the opportunity of speaking out more and connecting with, especially with women, I feel that we are our biggest limiting, factors. I think we are the ones who are so good, more than men. we see excuses A to C, almost anything, even a full moon. It's like, oh my God, it's not, according to astrology, it's not going to be good. I mean, I feel that one of the biggest lessons I have learned is like, there's never going to be the perfect scenario. There's never going to be the perfect time. I mean, if you're going to be trying to achieve for just the perfect setting so that I can go and pursue what I want, that's never going to happen. You're just going to have to take the leap of faith. You're just going to have to figure it out. But what the one thing that I have in what I have been able to truly, truly, stand by and attest is that when there is purpose, when there is something that you're truly aiming for, and it is coming because of the goodness of your heart and the goodness of becoming a better person, that will happen. And all the elements around you are going to conspire to make it happen. And so that is, I think, one of my learnings about, becoming high achiever is not so much high achiever, is that, a lot of the dreams that I've had are usually connected to a purpose. When I said I was going to climb Everest, it wasn't like I want to climb Everest so that I can brag to people. I said, I want to climb Everest because I want to say thank you to the mountain. And I also want to find a way of giving back. And I think even within the 7 summits, I mean, I was always scared of even as I started climbing them. When I heard people say, "Oh, Silvia conquered," I'm like, who the hell are we to conquer this? I mean, these mountains they're going to be here longer than we have.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of more the perception side. And so if we change our perception, and that's the beauty of it. I feel, to me, what I have been able to learn is that the fact that it's all in us, that's such an amazing gift. That means that, we can reprogram ourselves any single day. And that's the one thing, like, for example, and I tell people, it's not maybe about, trying to climb the tallest mountain, but we all have, our inner Everest. We all have this amazing dream that we want to try to pursue. It's all here. It's all about, putting ourselves, putting it out there. And also that's another lesson, is that bigger dream, it has a much better chance of becoming a reality if you say it out there, if you feel it, if you have the conviction, even if it feels embarrassing, just putting it out there, that gets you a step closer. Keeping it inside in your head, might not have the chance to start, getting all the help that you need from the outside.
Yeah. But, it's funny, you're climbing the mountain, but you're also climbing your mountain, right? Yeah. And climbing your demons, like the ice was like, all these things are like the demons coming at you that you're trying to, that's how I felt. But, you had a very successful career, and now your life has totally changed. Like, what have you learned through this kind of, this part of the journey as a woman in the industry of and then just shifting everything?
I have to tell you, scary. This has been possibly the most challenging inner and outer experience I've ever had. I mean, putting yourself out there. And I had the comfort of, of a corporate job. I was very happy, kind of almost feeling that I had a little house that was hosting me. I definitely had the opportunity of working hard and sacrificing a lot. I mean, when I switched, when I left the alcohol company and went into the tech world, within a year, they moved me abroad. So I also had to put crazy hours. And I felt that, and especially even after Everest, the last 2 years of my corporate life were very difficult because it almost like Everest had lifted this lid. And I felt that it actually had implanted a message in me about trying to bring more people to experience this. But it's almost, I had this very comfortable environment that, in a way also kept me small. It can be very supportive. And in no means, I think I tell people, you need to, when you're working for a large company, it is amazing. And it's not about like rebelling against it. It's more about, don't feel that you owe them everything. Actually, it has to be a 50-50 relationship. You're giving so much of your life to them. And so it needs to be something that, you both need to feel that you're both contributing equally. And at times, I think for my particular case, I felt that I had given it all and my interest already wasn't there. And so taking this leap of faith was taking me forever. And I really haven't told this to a lot of people, but I'll tell you this, Maria. I mean, right before my mom died, I spent my last year with her, and as she was going through her journey of cancer, she was giving these messages to all of us and telling my siblings, some of them were families, like, oh, work on your family, this and that. And her last wish for me was to get a master's. And so I still had it. I mean, she didn't believe in me climbing Everest. She actually kept trying to discourage me. It's like, it's too dangerous, don't do it. And I remember I did a mountain that I wasn't able to complete. And when I came back, she was like, see, you failed. And I'm like, all right, Mom, that's not fun. So it's not that it's not that she was like 100% like, okay, I can do it. I mean, so it wasn't like my family almost was like, yeah, whatever. So I didn't have a whole lot of support from them. But hers was to get a master's. And so it was like early 2019, and I was so unhappy in my work. I was having a hard time connecting. I mean, I wasn't showing up, but I was also too scared of saying something. And they had a massive reorg, and they were like, Silvia, sorry, it's like you're out. And it was this massive shock all of a sudden. I was like, oh my God, I no longer have a job. And I had applied for a master's, and there was a 1-year master's at Stanford. And so I applied for it, and I got put on the wait list on the master's. And I was like, all right, well, I was waiting for that. I tried to take myself to the North Pole. I was like, all right, let me do a little exploration. And unfortunately, that expedition didn't, we had some issues at the time, Russians and the Ukrainians, something started brewing even then. And I got back and I got a call from my literary agency. And they were like, all right, you know what? Listen, we want to work with you. And I remember telling myself, okay, this massive door has shut down, which was my corporate career. Here I am between wanted to get this master's that my mom had done or had asked me to, or I had the opportunity of taking this leap of faith and share my story, which is something that had come the year after I had gotten into my accident. And so I decided, all right, well, the book will be a master's of life. Maybe the MBA, the master's of the university can wait. So I decided to take on this leap of faith, and this is what has led me here. And, it's been this, to just have this beautiful opportunity of sharing my story. It's such an honor. Even when I started working with my agency, I was already 9 months sober. I already had, I had been working on myself, had been developing this these amazing tool sets to know what had been at the root of what had led me into my drinking. So I felt I am ready to take into this amazing path of opening up my heart, getting to the heart of the abuse, getting to the source of how everything started, and bring it out into the world. And every day is still something new. Nothing is guaranteed, but I am grateful that I get a chance to be present, to live with the frustration, with the uncertainty, but also knowing that I know my story is touching people. I know people will be able to see themselves reflected, even though it looks like a climbing book. It's not a book about really climbing a mountain. It's about a book about our own journey, our inner mountains, our pain. And so I'm just, so grateful to just be on this very unique journey.
I love that. I have to ask you before we go, what are some of those tools that helped you get past those demons and the alcoholism? Because you have to deal with the tools. You have to get the tools, but you also have to heal the wounds. And so we talk every day here about the inner work, whether it's somatic therapy or whatever. I'm curious, what helped you?
I'll tell you what really revolutionized kind of my healing. I started taking these incredible classes. It's called Compassion Cultivation Training. And it was the opportunity of learning how to give myself self-compassion. Mm-hmm. And it's tricky. I thought what was interesting is that, we all, especially, I don't know if for me, growing up in a very poor country and the circumstances that my parents were raised, they were very poor. By the time, I was growing up, we were middle class and we still had a lot of poor relatives. So my mom instigated on us, be caring of others. So I had developed a lot of compassion for others. That almost came very natural. And throughout my life, throughout a lot of the self-destruction that I was doing to myself, I felt like I'm still good to others. I'm still compassionate to others. I still care. So that counts. I never learned about what self-compassion was. And to go, and this training is an 8-week training. It used to be just on-site, but because of the pandemic, they now moved it online. And it's these 8 weeks that truly transformed my life. And after I was done with the first class, I took 3 more classes of it because it was the medicine that Maria, for the very first time in my life, allowing myself to learn how to give myself self-compassion, literally just got to the source of everything. It allowed me to get to the root of everything. It was this light that I didn't know I had the power to give myself. And it literally changed everything. It literally turned my life. It allowed me to, as I was mentioning, about how we can, how we can achieve anything. It's all about self-compassion. It's all about the opportunity of putting your hand on your heart and just being able to close your eyes for a second and go when when there's uncertainty that comes. It's just to feel, where is this coming from? Any projection, when people piss us off, when something is not going our way, if we're able to go back to just where the hurt is coming from by applying self-compassion, that literally was powerful. That is what stopped my drinking. I didn't go to a lot of, I didn't do AA classes. It literally was practicing self-compassion on a daily basis, which I still do. And these are self-guided meditations. It's not even like you need to meditate for 20 minutes. You meditate in silence for about 5-6 minutes, and then you get this guiding about, kind of how to orient your heart. How to bring things that are bothering you, have a connection to others. What self-compassion really brought to me, besides knowing, just the power of connecting here, is also the concept of common humanity, is to know that the pain that you're going through right now, someone else is going through it at the same time. And this whole interconnectivity is what really allows you not just to expand your self-compassion, but knowing that you're not alone, which is possibly what creates a lot of the self-destruction in our lives. I mean, we just feel that, well, we're the only ones that have gone through it, nobody else has it. And boom, we just create this inner, negative mountain inside of us. And that is literally what cured me. And that is something that I'm hoping that I can talk more in the future, because it's learning. I mean, we take it for granted. We're like, well, why are you talking about self-compassion? And I think it's just the notion of compassion. I think we need to give compassion, the word, a facelift or a little upgrade. But literally, that has been the biggest secret that turned my life upside down.
I love that. I agree so much. I just did some meditation work recently, and at this meditation event, I realized, I am not loving myself. I'm really good to everybody else. The same thing. I don't have compassion for me. I have compassion for everybody else. And that was a really big game changer for me too, because, that little girl inside of us deserves it.
Mm-hmm. And that is actually what these sessions will do. I mean, these classes and the whole structure of the class was developed by Thupé Jinpa, who is a Dalai Lama. He's a Dalai Lama translator, so he knows a little bit about meditation. Just a little bit. He has a little insight. But what I loved about it, and that's what has been unique, and I've been doing, I did transcendental meditation for a while. I've tried to pick up multiple tools and figuring out, this is the one that has now lasted close to 4 years. And as you were mentioning, it looks too simple. It's like, what are you talking about? About a hand in your heart? If we are able to just learn a little bit of how that connects to everything, it's just like a little fine tuning. It will do wonders. It absolutely will create wonders. And I mean, it's something that I think as now, as you went through that experience, we just take it for granted, and we just feel like, well, we have it. We do give it to others. It's a whole different game to give it to yourself.
Yeah. Well, then you have so much more to give too.
Absolutely, you do. And the one thing that I've been able to learn is that what we have to give is infinite, as long as we can recenter. And even for me, when I was writing the book, I had to reopen up through pain that I hadn't revisited. I had to get to the heart of the trauma, of the abuse. And I had an amazing somatic therapist. I mean, and that's what the book is so raw. The book is so raw and riveting, because I'll be going through my sessions. I'm like, all right, 2 minutes of like the daily things that people are pissing me off. And the rest of it, we will go into like almost like a little regression and feel of how your body's feeling and getting it out. And I remember I will finish writing some of the chapters, and there was a lot of crying and there was a lot of pain. And in the middle of the pandemic, I wouldn't, like, I couldn't go and call a friend and come and hug them. And I needed a lot of these. And I would just simply sit, and I will, start picking up one of the meditations and applying self-compassion to myself. And it kept me grounded. I mean, it's really, really, really something powerful.
Wow. Kelsey, you'll have to get the information on it so we can share it with the Heal Squad.
Absolutely.
It's so powerful. I want to do it as well. And the book is powerful. I mean, I could talk to you for hours and hours. But I think I'm grateful that you have been able to share this story with everybody, because it is powerful and inspiring, and you've climbed all the mountains, and you've physically and spiritually, and so it's not just the actual physical mountains. You're climbing the mountains of life for us, and showing us that there's a trust in us that we need to reconnect to.
Yes, we all have it. It is amazing that it's all inside. And it's how to reactivate it. And especially with everything that we have gone through over the last couple of years, and even up to now, the uncertainties, it is natural to feel fear. But that doesn't need to be the driving force. And even, especially the last 2 years, so much loss and grief. But it's all about being able to live with it, to cope with it, and to trust. to trust that we are here for amazing things, that we all have it in us. And I know even, I mean, that's what this journey here is. I mean, and the dream with the book for me is like, it's going to take you up on a roller coaster. It's an up and down, but to show that we all have it within us to get there.
Yeah. Well, we all have our own roller coasters, right? So we have to learn how to navigate them. And like you said, if you what was the quote? If you chase the pain. What was it? Hold on, I have it here. I already forgot how to say it properly. Kelsey, help me out here if you got it. Oh, when you run from your problems, they chase you. I was telling Kelsey before we started the show, someone was telling me if we don't grieve, new things to grieve will keep popping in so that you'll finally grieve.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's similar.
Life catches up to you. We can't cheat it. We feel we can outsmart emotions, especially, and we can't. And I think what just makes it harder is to feel the pain, to feel the heartbreak. We are afraid of feeling the heartbreak. And as much as we try to avoid it, it will come. And I think it's ultimately for many of us that have surrendered to the pain, we realize like, oh, the sun always shines. That's been one of the most beautiful things, as hard as the time feels. I mean, when I lost my partner, which I talked in the book about just, impossible grief. How can you ever amend a broken heart? And one of the most beautiful advices that a dear friend of my partner told me, because it happened so suddenly and I had so many questions I couldn't ask. He just said, listen, all the answers are in your heart. And as much as we tend to undermine it, especially when we are afraid and we're like, shit, this stupid heart of mine or this and that, and we can be so hard on ourselves, the strength of our heart, it just rebuilds. It will take time, but even through the grief, that is a way of learning, of becoming whole again. I mean, we just have this beautiful sense of resilience in all of us. And that is something that, it's up to us if we give it away. It's up to us if we give. We are the only ones who give up on ourselves. And if we just, and I will say this with 100% conviction on anyone, on all of your listeners, anything that you want, it will happen. Just, you gotta trust. You just have to, to even just give this, it will happen.
Sylvia, I have to ask for anybody who's listening to this who has arrived at their rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
What is your advice to them?
For anyone who is just, they feel they cannot go another day, for anybody who just feels I'm on my wits, this is really hard, it's just not going to change. You need to reach out. You are not alone. Number one, you are not alone. You're not alone. This is, the whole common humanity. And maybe that might not help. You're like, another person is suffering. That's even worse. The other part is reach out. Give out. At times we feel like, well, I don't want to comfort this person. I don't want to comfort someone. Try to understand. For a lot of your listeners, there is a Heal Squad. There is a community. And that is something that I was able to learn through the journey, even in writing the book. As I was bringing these young women with me, community is something that we all have it within us. And we tend to undermine how much support we can get. Sometimes we put all the blunt on people that are the closest to us. But if we would be able to take ourselves from that current spot and see from the outside, you will see how many people care for you. Mm-hmm. And so don't be afraid to reaching out, and things will change. As hard, I have been at my knees with my heart broken, crying and being like, this is it. I just, how am I going to do another day? How can I wake up? I don't want to even see the sun. I have been at that low point. But don't give up. There is so much for us. There is so much, but you just need to reach out. You just need to let someone else know. As much as our psychic powers can go, we need to just even open that up.
Oh, you just made me cry.
Oh,
It was beautiful.
I'm sending you so much love, Maria. This is us. It's us. It's us. It's us. All is in us. And breathing. This is the one aspect that I do. I put my heart and I breathe. Oh my God. And the ugly cry. Listen. People call me a badass. I call myself a crying badass. I am the number one. Like, that's when I don't wear makeup. It is like, but even with that, that is such an amazing relief to let it out. So you just like feel it as hard as it gets. It's part of it, but it strengthens us. It truly strengthens you. And so that is, and I'm here. I'm easily reachable. I'm through all the socials. Anybody that wants to ever chat. Might take a tiny second for us to coordinate, but I am here. I am here. I mean, you have created a beautiful community. I am now a messenger of the mountains. I put my story out there as a way of connecting with people. So I'm also here. It's part of what we're here. I mean, at least this is part of this privilege of having this opportunity.
Thank you, Silvia. Well, now you're a part of the Heal Squad too. And I know that they take great comfort in hearing that. And I'm sure they will reach out to you. I'm sure I'll reach out to you as well. Friends, the book is In the Shadow of the Mountain, a memoir of courage. It is out now. We'll put links to everything, Silvia, underneath in the description of this episode. And Silvia, this will not be our last interview, I hope.
I hope so too.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share today. You're a beautiful soul, and we're grateful for you.
Thank you, Maria. It's a true honor. Thank you. I'm a huge fan, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
All right, friends. I feel like I probably needed another hour with Silvia.
I know. Seriously.
Her story, guys, I don't even know if we got into it deep enough because she was just so full of like wisdom. But her story is so intense and so powerful, and she's gone through so much. And to see how vibrant and alive she is,
I know,
after all of it, is pretty awesome.
She has so many layers, and like you said, Maria, it's like you would need hours to get into everything. I mean, from growing up in a super conservative family, coming out as gay, and then the whole sexual assault, the tumor, like there's so much to her. And then you see the two of you talking, like you said,
how about almost dying on Mount Everest?
Right. Like there's so much. And the fact that she still, is such this light it's really amazing. And I'm looking into the compassion cultivation training, and I will let you all know because that sounds incredible.
Yeah. I heard about that from someone else too. I don't remember if it was a guest on the show or something, but we need to look into that and maybe have one of their experts on the show to talk about it.
Absolutely.
All right, friends, I got to hustle on out, but leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about the show, about this episode, whatever you would like. We'll leave a link to the Apple Podcasts reviews below. In the meantime, be nice people, make good choices, and be present.